You know what's fascinating about men? They'll never admit it openly, but they crave uncertainty when it comes to women. And I don't mean uncertainty in the sense of chaos or games that are toxic. I'm talking about that little space between knowing and not knowing, the space that keeps their imagination alive. The moment a man feels like he knows exactly where he stands with you at every single moment, the mystery evaporates. And with that mystery goes a huge chunk of his excitement. Think about the beginning of any relationship, or even just those first few conversations. Why does it feel so electric? Why do men obsess over the text message you send, replay your words in their heads, and find themselves checking their phone 100 times? It's because they don't yet have certainty. They're not sure if they've won you over. They're not sure what you think of them. They're not sure if you'll pick them or keep looking for someone else. That uncertainty lights them up, and it makes them show up in ways they wouldn't if everything felt guaranteed. Now, most people don't like to admit this because we live in a world that glorifies security and comfort. But attraction isn't built on comfort. Love might be, commitment might be, but attraction, the thing that pulls you towards someone like a magnet, isn't. Attraction thrives on tension. It thrives on the unknown. And men, even though they'll act like they hate it, secretly crave that little edge of not knowing. You've probably seen this play out in your own life. You meet a guy, and he seems all in at the start. He's calling, texting, asking you out, saying all the right things. Then, the moment he feels like he has you completely, the intensity drops. He doesn't put in the same effort. He doesn't chase in the same way. And you're left wondering, what happened? Was it all just an act in the beginning? The truth is, it wasn't an act. That effort was real, but what fueled it was the uncertainty. He didn't know if he had you yet, and so every fiber of his being was working to prove himself. Once he feels like there's nothing left to win, a part of him relaxes. And in that relaxation, attraction slowly starts to fade. This doesn't mean you should constantly play games or manipulate him into thinking you're going to disappear. That's not real connection, that's performance. What I'm talking about is allowing there to be enough space for him to still feel the challenge, enough unpredictability that he can't put you in a box and label you as done. It's about not giving every part of yourself away too soon, not revealing every thought, every plan, every feeling at once. Because mystery is powerful, and mystery doesn't mean you're hiding who you are. It just means you're allowing things to unfold in layers. Imagine a great movie. You don't want the plot revealed in the first 5 minutes. You want twists, you want to be surprised, you want to feel like you're on the edge of your seat, wondering what's going to happen next. Relationships are no different. If you give everything away at the start, there's nothing left to discover. And men are wired to be discoverers. They thrive on the hunt, on the journey of peeling back the layers. If you take that away, you rob him of one of the deepest pleasures he secretly craves. Here's the paradox: men will tell you they want certainty. They'll say things like, "I just want to know where we stand," or "I don't like games, I just want honesty." And that's true. But there's a difference between honesty and predictability. You can be honest about your feelings without making every step predictable. You can tell him you like him while still showing through your actions that you have your own life, your own priorities, your own standards. When he sees that, he feels that tiny sting of uncertainty. Does she like me as much as I like her? Will I lose her if I don't step up? Am I doing enough to keep her attention? And that sting is the very thing that drives him to keep trying. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Many women hear this and think, but shouldn't love be easy? Shouldn't it be simple? And yes, love should feel safe. But safe doesn't mean boring. Safe doesn't mean predictable. Think of it like this. You can be safe with someone, but still be exciting. You can be committed to someone, but still keep them on their toes. That's the sweet spot. That's where men feel both grounded and alive. The challenge of uncertainty is not about making him miserable. It's about keeping him engaged. And the way you do that isn't by pretending to be someone you're not. It's by actually living your life in a way that makes you interesting, fulfilled, and not dependent on his validation. Because nothing is more uncertain to a man than a woman who is fully capable of walking away if she isn't treated the way she deserves. That kind of uncertainty is intoxicating. It makes him show up with his best because he knows he could lose you if he doesn't. Think of it like fire. If you smother a fire with too much wood all at once, it suffocates. But if you feed it little by little, it grows stronger, hotter, more vibrant. Men crave that steady feeding of uncertainty. It keeps the flame alive. If you give everything at once, the fire dies. And here's the beautiful part. When you embrace this, you don't just make him crave you more, you actually enjoy the relationship more yourself. Because instead of being the one anxiously waiting for him to validate you, you're living your own rich, full life. And he's the one leaning in, trying to earn more of your time and attention. You flip the script. You become the prize he doesn't want to lose. At the heart of it, men crave the pain of uncertainty because it reminds them that what they're chasing is valuable. If it were easy, if it were guaranteed, it wouldn't feel worth as much. The struggle, the tension, the not knowing makes the reward of being with you that much more powerful. And even if he never says it out loud, he'll feel it deeply every time he realizes he has to keep working for you, not just once at the beginning, but continuously. So the truth is, it's not your job to make him feel comfortable all the time. It's your job to be authentic, to be strong, to live a life that doesn't revolve around him. And in doing so, you'll naturally create the kind of uncertainty that makes him crave you more than he ever thought possible. And that's the kind of pain men will chase forever. One of the hardest things for a man to swallow, but also the thing he secretly needs the most, is when a woman sets clear boundaries. It hurts, it stings his ego, it makes him question himself. But deep down, it's exactly the kind of pain he craves because it tells him something no amount of compliments or easy acceptance ever could. It tells him you have standards, and he has to rise to them. Here's the truth men will push. Not always in an intentional or malicious way, but they will test to see how far they can go. It might be as small as how late they can text you and still expect a reply. It might be how casually they can treat your time and still get away with it. It might be whether they can keep things vague instead of defining what they want. And in those moments, your response becomes everything. If you bend, if you tolerate it, if you let it slide, you send a message. Not just to him, but to yourself. You're saying, my standards are flexible if I like you enough. And the moment he feels that, he loses something. He loses the respect that fuels attraction. But when you enforce a boundary, when you calmly but firmly show him, this is where I draw the line, that's when he feels the pain that makes him sit up straight. That sting is uncomfortable, but it's also electrifying, because in that moment, he realizes he's dealing with someone who values herself. And men are wired to value what is hard to earn. Think about it like this: if every door in the city was unlocked and you could walk into any home you wanted without knocking, how much would those homes really mean to you? But the one with a lock, the one where you have to knock, wait, and be invited in, that's the one you respect. That's the one that feels like a privilege. A woman with no boundaries is like an unlocked door. Easy to enter, easy to leave. But a woman with boundaries, she's the one a man knows he has to earn. Now, here's the tricky part. Setting boundaries isn't always easy. It can feel scary because you worry, what if he leaves? What if he thinks I'm too difficult? What if I lose him? And yes, you might lose him. But the question is, what kind of man are you really losing? Because the kind of man who leaves the moment you show a boundary is not the man who was ever going to cherish you in the first place. The man who stays, the man who adjusts, the man who respects the line you've drawn. That's the man who truly craves the deeper connection. Men won't tell you this, but they admire women who call them out. When you say, "I don't accept being treated like that," or "if this is what you want, I'm not interested," there's a moment where his pride hurts. He might even get defensive. He might roll his eyes or try to argue. But later, when he's alone, that voice echoes in his head. And it doesn't make him want you less. It makes him want to rise. It makes him feel, if I want her, I've got to step up. And that feeling is addictive because men want to feel like they're becoming better around the woman they desire. This is why boundaries are not walls. You're not shutting him out. You're not being cruel. You're not punishing him. You're simply saying, if you want access to me, this is the level you need to meet. And men need that. They crave that. Without it, everything becomes too easy, and easy loses its meaning fast. I'll give you an example. Imagine he cancels on you last minute. He texts, "Sorry, something came up, can we reschedule?" Now, if you immediately say, "Sure, no problem," even though you're disappointed, what's the message? The message is, my time isn't that valuable. But if you respond with grace and strength, "I understand, but I want to be with someone who values making plans with me. If you'd like to see me, let me know when you're ready to commit to a time." Suddenly, the dynamic shifts. He feels that pinch. He feels that discomfort of knowing he let you down. But along with that pain, he also feels your value rise. And the next time, if he really wants you, he won't risk making the same mistake. Boundaries don't just shape how he treats you, they shape how you see yourself. Every time you enforce a boundary, you reinforce your own worth. You remind yourself that you're not afraid of losing someone who doesn't respect you. And that kind of self-respect is magnetic. A man can sense it. He can feel when a woman is strong enough to walk away if she's not treated right. And that sense of risk, that edge of, "I could lose her if I don't give my best," is the very thing that keeps him invested. Sometimes people think boundaries are harsh, that they make relationships rigid. But boundaries are actually the most loving thing you can bring to a relationship. Because when you set them, you're teaching the other person how to love you. You're showing them what you need to feel safe, respected, and cherished. Without boundaries, resentment builds. You accept things that hurt you, and eventually you explode or you shut down. With boundaries, you create clarity, and clarity allows love to grow. For men, that clarity is both painful and attractive. Painful because it forces them to confront their behavior. Attractive because it makes them respect the woman who doesn't just accept crumbs. Men secretly crave the pain of being told no, because that No forces them to become worthy of the eyes. Think about the times in your own life when you've respected someone deeply. Was it because they gave you everything you wanted whenever you asked? Or was it because they stood their ground? They made you earn it, and when they finally let you in, it felt like a privilege. That's exactly how men feel with women who set boundaries. The mistake many women make is thinking that boundaries will push a man away. But in reality, boundaries are what filter out the wrong men and draw in the right ones. The wrong man sees your boundary and walks. The right man sees your boundary, feels the sting, and decides to stay anyway. And that decision is what makes the relationship stronger. So when a man encounters your boundaries, when he feels the pain of rejection, the discomfort of being told he's not enough yet, he might not like it in the moment, but secretly he craves it because it gives him something to fight for. It gives him the opportunity to prove himself, and it gives him the chance to feel the satisfaction of winning the heart of a woman who doesn't give herself away to just anyone. And that's the kind of pain that transforms a man into someone better. If there's one thing men will never tell you, but they feel deeply, it's how much they both fear and crave vulnerability with a woman. For most men, the world doesn't allow it. From a young age, they're told to toughen up, to stop crying, to hide their weaknesses, to be strong. They learn that emotions are dangerous, that showing pain makes them less of a man, that they have to carry the weight of everything on their shoulders without ever letting anyone see them stumble. So when a man meets a woman who invites him into a space where he can finally take off that armor, it's both terrifying and magnetic at the same time. The pain of vulnerability is very real for a man. To him, it feels like standing on the edge of a cliff and jumping without knowing if there's going to be a net to catch him. It feels like exposing the parts of himself he's been taught to bury, the doubts, the fears, the insecurities, the moments when he doesn't feel enough. And that's not easy. It goes against everything he's been conditioned to believe. That's why when you see a man lower his guard with you, even just a little, you're witnessing something rare. Because that act, as painful as it feels for him in the moment, is also the very thing that creates the deepest intimacy. Now, here's the paradox. Men crave this pain. They crave it because it's through that discomfort that they feel truly alive with someone. You see, on the surface, a man might look like he wants the woman who laughs at all his jokes, tells him he's perfect, and never challenges him. But what he really longs for is the woman who makes it safe enough for him to say, "I'm scared," or "I don't know if I can do this," or even, "I feel like I'm failing." When a man can open up like that and not be judged, not be dismissed, not be laughed at, but instead be accepted, he feels a connection he can't find anywhere else. That connection is intoxicating because for the first time, he's not just being desired for his strength, for his ability to provide, for the image he projects to the world. He's being loved in the rawest form of who he is. And even though it's painful to let that side of himself be seen, it's also the most healing thing he can experience. The danger, of course, is that vulnerability can be misused. If a man opens up and his feelings are weaponized against him, or he feels shamed for expressing them, he'll retreat even further into his shell. That's why so many men keep their guard up. They don't trust that their vulnerability will be handled with care. But when they meet a woman who doesn't punish them for it, who listens, who holds that space with compassion, they can't help but be drawn in. And once they've tasted that feeling, they crave it again and again. You might not realize how rare that is for men. Women often talk with friends, they share their feelings openly, they process emotions together. For a lot of men, they don't have that outlet. They don't have anyone to talk to about their deepest fears. They don't have a safe circle where they can admit weakness without being judged. Which means that if you become that person for him, you occupy a place in his life that no one else does. That's why it feels so powerful when you allow him to be vulnerable with you. Because it's not just intimacy, it's a form of freedom he doesn't get anywhere else. But here's the catch. Vulnerability doesn't look the same in men as it does in women. Sometimes it won't come in the form of long conversations or dramatic emotional confessions. Sometimes it's subtle. It might look like him telling you about a bad day when he'd normally keep it to himself. It might look like him admitting he doesn't have all the answers. It might look like him showing you affection in ways he hasn't shown anyone else. Those are all cracks in the armor. And while it may not look like much from the outside, for him it's enormous. And when you recognize it, when you honor it, he feels safe to go even deeper. This is where the pain comes in. Vulnerability is never comfortable. For a man to let you in, he has to confront his own fear of rejection, his fear of being seen as weak, his fear that if you see the real him, you won't want him anymore. That's why he resists it at first. That's why he might get defensive or shut down when you push too hard. But when he finally leans in and you receive him with empathy instead of judgment, the relief is overwhelming. It's like he's been carrying a weight for years, and suddenly someone says, "You don't have to carry it alone." And that's when the bond becomes unbreakable. Men crave this pain because it validates their humanity. They're not machines. They're not unshakable rocks. They're human beings with emotions just like anyone else. And when a woman draws that part out of him, when she allows him to feel it's okay to be imperfect, he doesn't just feel attracted. He feels home. And that feeling of home is what keeps him coming back over and over again. The irony is, the very thing men have been told makes them weak is what actually makes them stronger in love. Because when a man can be vulnerable, he can love more fully. He doesn't have to keep up the mask. He doesn't have to perform. He can just be. And in being, he feels truly connected. So yes, vulnerability is painful. It cuts through pride. It forces him to confront parts of himself he'd rather hide. It makes him risk rejection. But that's also why it's so powerful, because nothing worth having comes without risk. And the man who's willing to be vulnerable with you is showing you just how much he values what he has with you. He's saying, in his own way, I trust you with the parts of me no one else sees. And that trust is the greatest compliment he can give. It may hurt him to let his guard down, but the truth is, he wouldn't crave it if it didn't make him feel alive. And that's the kind of pain that binds a man's heart forever. One of the deepest pains a man secretly craves from a woman is the pain of growth. It's not the kind of pain he'll ever ask for out loud, and it's certainly not the kind he thinks he wants in the moment. But it's the one that makes him better, stronger, and ultimately more in love. Because when a man is with a woman who won't let him settle for mediocrity, he's forced to grow. And growth, by its nature, is uncomfortable. It stretches you, it challenges you, it breaks down parts of you that no longer serve you. And yet, it's the very thing that makes life meaningful. A man may say he wants ease. He may say he wants a woman who goes along with everything, who never challenges him, who accepts him exactly as he is. and in the short term that feels good to his ego. But over time, something inside him begins to die in that kind of comfort. Because no man feels alive when he isn't being challenged to rise. He might not say it, but he craves the woman who demands more of him, not because she's difficult, but because she sees what he's capable of and refuses to let him fall short of it. This pain of growth shows up in so many subtle ways. It's in the moment when he tries to cut corners and she doesn't let him. It's in the moment when he wants to avoid responsibility and she calmly reminds him of his potential. It's in the moment when he wants to stay the same, but she calls him to evolve. Those moments sting. They confront his pride. They make him uncomfortable. But they also light a fire inside him that no easy, unchallenging relationship ever could. Think about it. The people we respect most in life are rarely the ones who let us stay exactly as we are. They're the ones who demanded more of us, who made us uncomfortable in the moment, but who ultimately pulled us into a higher version of ourselves. A teacher, a coach, a mentor. These are the people who pushed us when we didn't want to be pushed, who refused to let us settle for less, and because of that, they left a mark on us forever. A woman who loves a man in this way becomes more than a partner. She becomes the catalyst for his greatness. Now, this doesn't mean criticizing him, nagging him, or constantly pointing out what he's doing wrong. That only makes him defensive. The kind of growth I'm talking about comes from a different energy. It's about holding a standard, not because you want to control him, but because you believe in him. When a man feels that you see a version of him that even he sometimes forgets exists, and you're unwilling to accept less than that, he may resist you at first. He may push back. He may even get frustrated. But deep down, he's drawn to it because every man wants to be admired. And admiration doesn't come from being handed everything. It comes from rising to the occasion. Here's the paradox. The pain of growth feels like rejection in the moment. But in reality, it's one of the purest forms of love. When you tell a man, I won't accept this behavior because I know you're better than this. You're not rejecting him. You're affirming his potential. You're telling him that you see more in him than he's currently showing. That's powerful. That makes him want to rise. That makes him crave you even more because with you, he feels like he's becoming the man he was meant to be. Men don't want to admit this, but they get bored when everything is easy. When nothing is asked of them, when they're not called to stretch, they fall into complacency. And complacency is the death of attraction. But when they're with a woman who challenges them, not with hostility, but with love, they come alive. They might groan about it, they might resist, but deep down they're grateful for it. Because every man wants to feel like he's capable of more. And when a woman becomes the mirror that reflects that higher self back to him, he'll go through the discomfort, the frustration, even the pain, just to stand taller in her eyes. It's important to understand that this isn't about changing a man into someone he's not. It's not about molding him into your fantasy. It's about refusing to let him settle for being less than the man he already has the potential to be. And there's a difference. When a man feels like you're trying to change him, he resists. But when he feels like you're calling out the greatness in him, he can't help but lean in, because somewhere deep down, he knows it's true. He knows he's capable of more. And being with you reminds him of that. Growth hurts. It's painful to admit you've been lazy. It's painful to face your flaws. It's painful to step into responsibility when it would be easier to avoid it. But men secretly crave that pain because it's what gives their life meaning. It's what makes them feel alive. And when that pain comes from a woman who loves them, it doesn't feel like criticism. It feels like inspiration. Imagine a man who avoids responsibility his whole life. He chooses the easy path. He never pushes himself. He never faces his fears. On the surface, his life looks comfortable, but inside, he feels empty. Because deep down, every man wants to know he's capable of more. Every man wants to feel like he's leaving his mark, like he's growing, like he's becoming someone worthy of respect. And sometimes he can't find that strength on his own. Sometimes it takes a woman he loves to pull it out of him. And here's the thing, when you challenge a man with love, he doesn't just grow for himself. He grows for you. He feels this incredible drive to step into his best self because you've shown him that you won't settle for less. And that drive transforms the way he sees you. Because now you're not just the woman he loves. You're the woman who made him better. And no man ever forgets the woman who made him better. Yes, it hurts in the moment. It hurts his pride. It hurts his comfort. It forces him to confront things he doesn't want to face. But that pain is exactly what makes the love feel so valuable. Because he knows he's not just loved for who he is today. He's loved for who he can become. And that's the kind of love that makes him stay, that makes him commit, that makes him crave you above anyone else. And that's the kind of pain men never stop chasing.